Some critical decisions about that Russia investigation were made before I got there. The previous administration chose not to publicize the full story about Russian computer hackers and social media trolls and how they relate to Russia's broader strategy to undermine America.
So that's some rare public comments now from the Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein going after the Obama administration in that clip, as well as the former FBI Director James Comey. Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, Fox News contributor with me now. Sir, good morning to you. You heard that comment about critical decisions were made before I got there. How did you interpret this from Rod Rosenstein?
I thought it was a soft way of him saying basically there was a cover-up. They knew that the Russians were attempting to influence the election and attempting to hack the election. But they didn't fully disclose that to the American people, and they certainly didn't disclose it to the Trump campaign. Instead, they tried to set a trap for them. It failed. The Trump team did not take the bait, and that's the one conclusion that we can certainly come away with from the $35 million worth of investigation. But I thought it was an unusually candid moment for Rosenstein to say what he did yesterday.
Okay, the other thing is, just go back. This is in New York City, by the way. Just go back to another comment, a clip from last night here. Watch, Governor.
I did not promise to report all results to the public because, as my fellow U.S. attorneys know well, grand jury investigations are ex parte proceedings. It's not our job to render conclusive factual findings. We just decide whether it's appropriate to file criminal charges.
I heard two things in that. I did not promise to report all the results to the public. But that last comment, we decide whether it's appropriate to file criminal charges. Does Bob Mueller see his job that same way when you read part 2 of the Mueller report, which punted to Congress, Governor? What do you think of that?
Well, let's remember Bob Mueller had one responsibility, just one, to find out whether Donald Trump and or his campaign colluded with Russians. On that one thing that he had to do, he found that there was no collusion. And that was overwhelmingly clear by his report. Now, all the other stuff that he apparently looked into was not part of his mission. He added that because I think that there were people who were working for him who said, we've got to find something. We've spent too much money, we've got too much invested, and they just came away with a goose egg. So I really believe that if Americans would step back and take their partisan hats off, try to look at this objectively, what they would say is that the president was in fact exonerated because the only thing he was being investigated for was collusion with the Russians. There wasn't any. None. In fact, the Russians attempted to get them reeled in, and the Trump campaign rejected those overtures.
Yeah. The other count, did you see the interview last night with Sean Hannity? I'm going to play a clip here. It's talking about Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. And just watch where this goes with Bill Barr at the end here.
But these were the two that talked about the insurance policy just in case Hillary Clinton loses. Now she lost, and now they're trying to infiltrate the administration. This is long after the election. It's a disgrace. And again, hopefully the Attorney General will do what's right, and I really believe he will.
So that is about Bill Barr, and he's going to testify before the Senate and the House next week. And on that Senate committee that Lindsey Graham, he's the chair of that, there are 3 Democrats who want to be the Democratic nominee. How's this going to go?
It's going to be a theater, an absolute show. Just like the Kavanaugh hearings were and like everything else is in Congress. I think we ought to close the curtain on them, tell them they can't come back until after the election. They're not doing their job anyway, so we're not paying them because they're doing some wonderful service to the country. And it would spare us all the hypocrisy of them sitting there pretending that they're interested in getting to the bottom of the facts. But the one thing I think we can say is that Attorney General Barr, I don't know him personally, but I know people who do, who have worked with him for years, and they say there's one thing you can know about him. He is a guy who is totally committed to the idea of genuine justice. Let the hammer fall where the nail is. And so I do believe that there are some people who are sweating through their socks because they know Barr to be a man who is going to let the facts lead him to a conclusion rather than to have a conclusion and then try to sum up some facts that would get him to that conclusion.
Well, Governor, thank you for your time. Have a great weekend and good luck on your show. Okay?
Thanks, Bill.
Mike Huckabee, you got a little something in the throat there, don't you? I blame pollen this time here.
Pollen. Yes, it is.
Hang in there. Nice to see you.
Geraldo Rivera's here.
Hello, Brian.
Fox News, he's at large, and his being at large has your large presence.
I am
right
a large.
now.
I'm over large.
Right. So extra large. So is this embarrassing to Mexico that they're unable to hold? And half of them got out?
I think that Mexico is experiencing the same kinds of problems with volume as we are on our southern border. It's very, very difficult when you have hundreds and hundreds become thousands and thousands ultimately become tens of thousands. It's very difficult to have an orderly system. It seems to me the fact that Mexico apprehended these mostly Cuban refugees is a step in the right direction. Now, in terms of facilities, that is something I believe the United States can help with. Just as I believe, and I have said before on this program, that we have to stop the source of the migrant explosion, this volcanic immigration we've had, by a comprehensive system of political and economic reform in Central America, where people have an incentive to stay home, where they think they can be safe, where they can raise their children in a decent way, where they can get educated, where they have a future that doesn't involve MS-13 or one of these other groups. So I believe that we can help Mexico with its infrastructure, because Mexico does have a moral burden, as the president has made very clear, not to let unchecked herds of desperate people flow through 2,000 miles of Mexican territory to get to our southern border. We've got to be a regional approach.
Geraldo, this started as a conversation about one caravan. Now it has been one caravan after another. You now have an influx of family units coming across the border. Looking ahead toward 2020, is this an issue that now Democrats, you think, are prepared to take seriously, given the scope of what's actually being visibly shown to the public in footage and otherwise?
I think, Jedediah, if they don't take it seriously, they ignore it at their peril. It's very clear now that whatever you thought of the president's initial speech coming down the escalator at Trump Tower, and I remember I was broadcasting live on WABC Radio, and I was, yeah, right on, there he goes, there's my buddy. When's the last time you had a hangout buddy running for president? And then he said the thing about Mexicans and rapists, and I was deflated. But I think that the president has had an arc, just as he has in his presidency writ large, on the issue of immigration. He now is in a position where he can justly say, I was right, that the anarchy at the border doesn't serve anybody. You know, maybe he said it in language that I thought was a little rough and insensitive. But there's no doubt when Thomas Friedman in the New York Times in an op-ed page writes how necessary a wall is, then you know that American society has moved considerably to the center on the issue of immigration, even though we need comprehensive immigration reform and the Dreamers and all the rest of it.
But the Democrats don't want to say Donald Trump was right, because that would give him a win, and we're heading toward 2020. What do you make of Joe Biden finally yesterday declaring in an online video that he is in it? He also revealed yesterday that he specifically asked Barack Obama, don't endorse me. I don't need your help.
I think that his friendship with the Obamas is the strongest asset he has. Yeah. And I understand why strategically, or maybe tactically, you don't want the president, the former president, announcing right now and tying himself to a candidate. Certainly the former First Lady, Michelle Obama, on this extensive book tour, which is being interviewed every single day, she could easily say, oh, I'm so glad our old buddy Joe's running. We love him in the Obama household. He was so cool with us, and he stood
That's why I endorsed Hillary Clinton last time and told him to stay out. And that's why I sent my guys to Beto O'Rourke.
I think that that Joe Biden's biggest asset is his relationship with the Obamas, his loyalty to President Obama. That's where I think he gets a lot of his support from older women and minorities, particularly African Americans.
So what's he going to do about his past?
You know, his past...
Should he embrace it?
First of all,
he already tried getting Anita Hill.
I embrace him because he's the only one, he and Bernie Sanders, older than I am. So I think just for the senior citizen contingent watching, you know, we have to support these old timers. I think that I joke about age, but I do so with this serious bottom line. The moment he flags, remember, he'll be 78 years old if elected in November 2020. The moment he stutters or stumbles or looks deflated in terms of energy,
They're going to say he's too old.
One of the things about Donald Trump is, for a 72-year-old guy, he bounds up on the stage. He has got tremendous energy. He kisses anyone who wants to be kissed, high-fiving everybody. Joe Biden, unfortunately, kisses people who don't necessarily
doesn't let go.
Don't want to.
And doesn't let go. He doesn't have. And I don't think, personally, if Joe Biden, I don't know how he wins the nomination when, you know, the year of the woman, the year of the activist.
And who does?
Who does? You know, I guess one of the senators,
You think
maybe
so?
Kamala.
Bernie?
You think Kamala's going to rise up above Bernie Sanders? You think so?
I think that Bernie has plateaued. I think that there's no
His ceiling
more.
is
There's
30%.
no place. Once you have an admitted and avowed socialist who says, you know, the
Homicidal
Boston
maniacs
bomber
can vote.
Right, can vote, a rapist can vote, a guy can postpone his execution. Now, wait a second, I've got to cast my ballot for my next representative.
I hope my Chad doesn't hang.
You can't vote for that one anyway. That was. I think that Bernie will plateau. One of these people will break out of the crowd. I think Beto is finished. I think Mayor Pete dusted him off. If you wanted to go that way, if you wanted to go with the young buckaroo with flamboyant ideas and an aggressive point of view, maybe you go with Mayor Pete, who has demonstrated success in South Bend, even though South Bend is a relatively
Wrap-up question.
community.
Do you believe, as was written today, that on some level the president fears Joe Biden, worries about Joe Biden and the working class vote, and Pennsylvania and Indiana and things like that?
Well, I think that Joe Biden has a legit claim. I mean, he is spent the first
from
10 years of his
Pennsylvania.
life
Do you
in
think
Scranton,
the
Pennsylvania.
Trump team is really concerned?
You know, I live in Cleveland now. All I can tell you is that from central Pennsylvania through the heart of Ohio, then west to Michigan and Wisconsin and so forth, I think President Trump has to perform there again. He has to maintain the white working class guy. Joe Biden, I think, is the only one who could have a remote appeal to that crowd, to the crowd that we've been calling the Trump base. But when you saw the president last night, we didn't say we heard his voice on the Hannity program, he sounds competent. He sounds confident. The tide has turned in terms of Russiagate. It's now going to all roll back on all the architects of the misery that the Trump administration has been subjected to, and the president particularly. We're going to find out what role, you know, I don't know what role Joe Biden played in Russiagate. What role did Barack Obama play?
Right.
What about Loretta Lynch, their attorney general? She was the attorney general there for a long time.
Maybe we'll find out with the Inspector General report, which sounds like it's coming. The president referred to it as
They'll
blockbuster.
deliver right to your house.
Geraldo, thank you very
Thanks
much.
so much, Geraldo.
All right.
Always great to have you.
I'll see you on radio. Okay.
All right. I thought you were going to hit my thigh. I was mistaken. I didn't know you were going to stay up there. We'll talk about it again in the break.